I don't even know how I want to lead this off. I don't, because this is depressing. I would like to be someone who is like, here's all the exciting things that were coming in. They're coming up in VR soon, and here's like a games that we're really excited about. I did that on the stream last week or a week before, because I realized there was a lot of negativity going around. But again, every time one of these comes up, I have to report it, because this stuff gets underreported in lieu of here's the next thing to get yourself overhyped about and then be disappointed, because it's just a content churn machine, and hype and copium sells more than anything else. I'm saying all that to say that we have more bad news. Toast Interactive, the Australian developer of Richie's Plank Experience and most recently Max Mustard last year, that game released last March, has officially shut down. This follows a series of layoffs that they went through, I think, at the end of last year. The official statement from their XV says, to everyone in the VR community, we are closing the Toast Interactive office. It's a heartbreaking decision that we never wanted to make. The majority of our talented staff have suffered redundancies, and we will assist where we can with their next journey. We're incredibly grateful and proud of everything the team has accomplished. So much talent and passion went into the creation of Max Mustard, and every single accolade speaks volumes. We will continue to improve Richie's Plank Experience and Max Mustard with a leaner approach. We want to thank and acknowledge everyone who's been a part of our journey at Toast. Sincerely, Tony and Richard. My guess is they go down to a two-person team, just the Tony and Richard, who were the founders of the original studio, and they're going to be the ones doing all the work moving forward, but they're not going to maintain a full studio. This sucks. This sucks, and I say that every time too, but it bears repeating. The more interesting thing, more so than this standard corporate speak, which is pretty much what every one of these messages says, is what they said on Reddit. Max Mustard is made for the older Mario generation first and foremost. Me. So we should have made it look less like a kid's game. We wanted people to feel happy when playing it, so went with the happy vibe. Either way, we put our hand up to say, yes, we could have done better there. I really don't think Mario's evolved in 40 years, and I still play those games, but okay, whatever. Unfortunately, what also hurt Max Mustard is it received 0 store presence. They are specifically talking about Meta right now, because that is the first platform it launched on. We assumed that if it scored a high user rating, that it would make it into the important top-rated category on the store, completing its discovery loop. With its 4.9 for the first few months and hundreds of reviews, it should have been at the #1 spot of the top rated, but never appeared. Apparently it's, quote, the algorithm. Wasn't in any other category. Hidden gems? No. Made in Australia? No, nothing. It was heartbreaking. One of the biggest budget VR titles, highest customer ratings, Game of the Year finalist, 0 store presence. We brute forced a short stint using the ridiculous cross-promo discount with Richie's Plank, and full price sales have increased since then, proving that store presence is critical. The top rated category is now removed from this store, so we've given up trying to get store discoverability. And that is the end of the quote. So I need no more. They had an unwarranted, in my opinion, hit with Plank. Did they bet the farm on Max or expand too much too fast? I'm gonna guess they scaled up like a lot of companies did during the pandemic when everyone was buying quests up like crazy. And this might be more of a regression to the mean. But that was not a large team to begin with. I thought when you said your staff is redundant, that means someone purchased you. You no longer need them to do certain parts because the company that purchased you has that already. Redundant and redundancies has become a very nice way of saying layoffs. So technically, yes, that definition is correct, Beavis. But there are a lot of companies who are saying made redundant because we can't afford to pay you anymore. Not so much because they got bought. Only you expand the team to handle the project. Multiple modelers and animators are jack of all trades. When the project is finished or shrinks, then they don't need as many people, ergo redundant. Oni's not wrong. Oni's not wrong that once the game gets over the finish line, this just broke today as we're recording this with Marvel Rivals, where a bunch of people from that development team got laid off because, and in more VR terms, you could also think about Meta stripping down Downpour Interactive to like a skeleton crew to maintain updates for Onward. Once the game gets over the finish line, once the game is fully designed, you don't need as many people there to maintain it, especially a game like Max Mustard, unless you were scaling up for another project. And a lot of these single player game studios, the sales from those games just fuels the next project. It's just to get them to the next project. Yes, there's an element of profitability in there. And if you have a game that is a hit, you can scale up to build your next project and make your project bigger than the one that was before. The very first video I did on why the meta store sucks was over a year ago. And multiple developers hit me up in DMs privately saying, hey, thank you for making that video. The discoverability is really, really bad, but we can't say that publicly. Over the course of the last, let's say 6 months or so, probably 9 months or so at this point, that has changed, and they have been straight up saying no, discoverability is shit. Ryan from Golf Plus came out and said it. Someone from Sin Studios was talking about how their game is selling better on PSVR 2. The Max Mustard devs said their game sold better on PSVR 2 in the first 2 weeks of release than the first 2 weeks of release on Quest. Devs have been pretty blunt and honest about it, as I think the veil of partnership with Meta is starting to fall, and they're realizing that this isn't a partnership, this is a business transaction. You're hurting my business, and they're being a lot more vocal about it. Oh gosh, we are in our 8th full week of 2025, and already we've had this one. We had In shut down 2 of their studios and combined them into one, basically, and they now have all these offshoot studios where one's going to work purely on free-to-play content and the other one's going to work on high fidelity experiences. But basically they're like consolidating their team because of the trend in the VR market. Fast Travel Games said the same thing when they announced that they were doing layoffs. They said, just looking at the trend of where the VR market is going, and they're being just blunt and honest about the state of affairs right now. This is the first time I've seen a developer just straight up say the store is trash in terms of why they're closing down and why they're going through layoffs. The other ones were all like corporate speak, but I hate to say it, this is going to get worse before it gets better. This is crap. This is awful, and I have been railing against how bad the Meta Store was for a while. But the other ironic thing is that this comes a week after Samantha Ryan, the VP of Metaverse Content, I think is her title, over at Meta, put out a, in my opinion now, tone-deaf blog post about how they're experiencing their best quarter sales ever, and everything's looking up for Meta, and this is what they're going to do to support developers, because they're going to fix the store and they're going to have free-to-play games live side by side harmoniously with premium apps. Okay, well, one of your OGs just shut down, so how's that really going for you? Unfortunately, I think Max Mustard released right when Meta pivoted way too hard over to the Horizon world and store content, and to the point where Horizon was all you were getting if you were a casual consumer browsing the store, and every single paid app was getting buried, every single one of them, except I Am Cat, because that game popped off on TikTok, so that game was getting front store presence, but that's it. Every single thing else was Quest Plus or Horizon Worlds, and no store could get any kind of shine. That didn't change until this fall, when lo and behold, Meta had a game to put out, because that's when Batman Arkham Shadow came out. But over the spring and the summer, the store was absolute trash, worse than it is, way worse than it is now. It was awful. And the thing that sucks about it is because they released in the right window. Spring is typically like late winter, so like January, February, time we're in now, and early spring is usually a pretty dry period for games. You get like maybe 1 or 2 big ones around this time. This is the time, if you're an indie dev, to release something and help and find an audience, because you're not going up against the heavy hitters. You're not going up against like the Batmans and Metros and Alien Rogue Incursions and Behemoths of the world. This was the time window to do it, but it also coincided with Meta just completely destroying their store, and that killed any kind of marketing efforts that Max Mustard was going to do. Max Mustard also started the trend of doing the 90% off deals, where you got the game for basically $3, and that's the short-term promo, the quote ridiculous short-term promo that they were talking about. Because for a very brief time, Max Mustard was, I think it was about 2 weeks, Max Mustard was by far the best-selling game on the Quest store, because everyone's buying it for $3. But how many people actually went back and played that game? So at the end of the day, one of the OGs in virtual reality has closed up shop, and they're pointing the finger square at Meta for basically forcing them to close their doors. Because a game that launched exclusively on their platform that ultimately serves a younger demographic. If you wanted to say this game was made for kids, that's a lot of people that were buying headsets in the last year. So it actually was in the right niche, even if they didn't intend it to make it like a kid's game. It was meant for, like, you know, older Mario generation like me. It still didn't do well. This is sad, and again, this is only the beginning of the last year and a half of Meta's marketing pivot. Is these chickens are coming home to roost, and on top of all of these developers scaling up, thinking that the boom that came from the pandemic was going to continue, all of these games that they started working on, that they hired all these people for, are releasing, and they're not doing well. So these things are happening, and it's a combination of it's a big crap sandwich, and it's awful. And I don't think this is the last of us.